time aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. Mr. Kerr is getting ready to take off once again, and so we'll be discussing that trip here shortly and all the things Richard's not going to buy because of how expensive they are at Disney. We're also going to be talking about the left-hand turn that MGM has taken right out of the driveway marked Hyatt at the mailbox and right into the driveway marked Marriott. There's some Virgin Awards out there that we're going to talk about, and I am going to borrow Mr. Kerr's soapbox for just a few moments as we get into things here. But you woke up this morning, man, with the shocking news that you have been downgraded on Delta from a 767 to a 757, and you know there are going to be a whole bunch of pissed off people at the gate when you get there.
Yeah, I got the weirdest text response ever. So it's only an hour flight from Atlanta to Orlando. We had Comfort Plus on a 767. Specifically picked the flight because it was a wide body. Anytime you can take a domestic wide body, you should take it. But I got a flighty alert at 6:30 this morning that said, hey, aircraft swap to 757. Flighty does this from time to time. They've done it to me several times with United, and there's actually not an aircraft type. There's just a tail number. But this time I clicked over the Delta app, and sure enough, it's now a 757. We were in Comfort Plus. We're not anymore. I sent Delta a quick message that just said, hey, looks like we had an aircraft swap. And we lost Comfort Plus, and we're just down into regular economy seats. Again, hour flight, not a big deal, but worth the text. This is a response I got. I've never... Maybe it's agents early in the morning having fun. I apologize for the experience you've had with us due to aircraft swap. Our culture of treating all people with dignity and we respect your time. So that last sentence doesn't even make sense, but our culture of treating all people with dignity and we respect your time. I said, thanks. What can we do about this seat? And she went, the whole aircraft is full. There's nothing I can do, but I continue the complaint form. So please fill this out. And I was like, okay, thanks. Again, not the end of the world, but pretty rare actually. Delta does not often swap aircraft types on you, but it is just an hour flight, so maybe they need that 767 for some international route somewhere else. And now we're flying the very long single aisle down to Orlando, which the worst part about that is if you're in row 49 on the 757-300, that deplaning process is pretty
sucks.
lengthy,
Yeah.
and it's really hot, so you don't want to be on the plane any longer. So luckily we are up towards the front of regular economy, and we will be boarding last and then getting off the plane, because sitting there in the Atlanta sun at 2 p.m. on a plane just running off the APU is a hot scene, which reminds me of the story I sent you this morning about those poor people in Vegas yesterday.
I know. Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second, but just to tee up for folks, if you are just tuning in, you can text us or send us a voicemail at 571-293-6659. You can also email the show, ed@pizzainmotion.com, and you can find him on social media, including maybe Threads. Have you logged back into Threads yet?
No, I completely forgot about it. I haven't clicked on it in a week.
So he is at Kerpoints on all those social media channels. I am at Pizza in Motion. I do have Thread alerts set on my phone, so every once in a while I'm getting, somebody liked something I said, but not a single person has replied to anything I've said, even though my follower count continues to grow as other people download the episode and download the app.
Why do you have alerts? The last person that I ever know that needs more alerts on their phone is you.
The reason why I have alerts on the phone is because I obviously hit the wrong button when I downloaded the app. It's at the preferences, and I have been too lazy to go back in and turn it off. That's the truth.
That's funny.
Yeah. So yeah, you alluded to it, and I was just in Vegas, but there was a Delta flight that got parked on the tarmac for a few hours in Vegas, which is just such a bad idea right now. And there were apparently people puking in the aisles and all kinds of fun stuff.
Passing out, they had to bring stretchers on board to get the people off finally after it said close to 4 hours. They were finally back at the gate and said everybody can deplane, but if you deplane, you're probably not going to get a flight for a few days because everything's sold out. So they're like, sorry for making you hot, throwing up and passing out. And if you get off the plane, you're not going to get home for the next couple of days. So it's like, very un-Delta-like experience. But how the dispatcher and ground ops and station managers think that parking a plane in the 111 degree heat for multiple hours is a good idea. I don't know how you can do that. And I would hope that those people got some pretty lofty compensation.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was brutal this week. It hit 117 while I was there, and everybody talks about dry heat, and there's definitely some credence to that. But I'll tell you, once it gets above 110, it's just obscene. And walking around outside, which I did very little of, was just ugly, just plain ugly. So I'm a hard no. We were gonna go have dinner somewhere else outside of the casino. I stayed at Resorts World again this week, And I had booked dinner elsewhere, and it's like, I don't, like, once I'm done today, I don't want to step back out into the heat. So we're just going to stay in the hotel. And so we ate at Kusanori at Resorts World instead of going to Lavo, because, like, I just don't, I can't do it. 117, actually, sorry, I apologize. That day it was only 116, not 117.
No way, man. I saw several flights canceled in places like
Mhm.
Phoenix because it's too hot for the planes to take off.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they're having to do some funky weight and balance stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I would, being my nerdy self and timing takeoff rolls, I would love to have timed some of those takeoff rolls to see how long
High and hot.
those planes got to get up to speed in order to take off when it's 116 degrees outside.
Well,
Like-
yeah, and there's not a whole lot of relief because, I as you know, I get up fairly early in the morning when I'm out in Vegas. And when I was getting up in the morning, the last day I was in town, I got up at 5, and that was the only day when I woke up it wasn't already triple digit. It was 99 degrees at 5:25 when I finally checked the temperature. But it was, when our flight took off, so I took an evening flight, 5 something. It was still in the teens, 112, 113, something like that. So I was certainly, curious what it was going to be like at those sorts of temperatures. So it's a little bit nuts.
99 degrees at 5 in the morning. Like, why do people live out there, man? Like, I just don't. There's just no way that I can live
No
out
state
there.
income tax, man. No state income tax, and they like gambling.
We moved to New Hampshire. Like, I don't know. Like, whatever the other state is where it's cooler, where there's no income tax.
So right before I borrow your soapbox, and I hope you cleaned it for me because I don't want to be stepping on any dusty, dirty stuff. It's been a while since you pulled it out. Just a note for folks, if you want to support the show, you'll see links in the show notes for our Slack community, Pizza Box Travel. If you want to shell out a few bucks and be a part of the community, we have weekly happy hours, and we answer all of your questions there. And we have some fun discussions. I actually got a couple of fun giveaways coming up. So the reason to borrow the soapbox, and maybe not soapbox, but I want to get into this a little bit with you, Mr. Kern. I want to talk about this 2-star rating we got because I think it touches on something from an education standpoint. So appreciate the rating. Don't love that it's 2 stars, but this listener says, I've listened on and off over the years. The banter between the hosts is entertaining. I think he means us. They provide good information if it's the programs they use, such as Hyatt. The bashing on other programs that their followers may use, such as Marriott, comes off as insulting and reeks of arrogance. So
I think this individual likes Marriott.
Yes, I would agree. And I thought about this, like I joked about it when it first came in, and you and I laughed about it a little bit, but I started to think about it more. And look, I mean, I certainly don't want this to come off as arrogant, but I'm a guy who, I cut my teeth in the Starwood program. I was a Starwood loyalist for many years and only came over to Hyatt full time as things started to transition to the Marriott world. And like, the more I thought about this, I won't say complaint, but this, rating from this person, it's like, I think we haven't done a good enough job explaining, the value of each program to folks if they think that we're coming off as arrogant when we talk about Marriott. People can agree to disagree. Like, maybe you like Marriott more than you like Hyatt, but I think, even if you think about programs like Hilton and what value, exists there, I think as we've looked at where Marriott is, and you and I keep coming back to Swan and Dolphin as like sort of our barometer, but back in the day, that property for SPG was 8,000, 10,000 SPG points a night, which would be about, 30,000 Marriott Rewards points. And that was, certainly less than 10 years ago, but probably 5 or 6 years ago. And now we're consistently seeing that property at 60, 65,000. That's a really big difference in the value that you get out of your Marriott points.
Yeah, I'm actually at the Swan tonight, but it's thanks to a free night certificate from Emily's Ritz-Carlton card, which is like the perfect use case for having that. Because there's it's a lot of points. So I've thought about it as well as a lot of Marriott news, which we're going to talk about after this and what they're doing in Vegas. Like, there are things about the Marriott program that I understand why they draw people in. Number one, there's a hotel everywhere you go. So if you
3 hotels everywhere you go.
3 hotels of a variety of different brands, from small city to big city to off the beaten path, the autograph collections, all this stuff. There's a property wherever you want to go. So you can be loyal to your hotel chain wherever you go and get some value in return, versus with Marriott or Hyatt, there's not going to be a Hyatt everywhere you go. So like, from that point, I understand it, but it's not going to be my favorite program, but it is something that is in demand for the people and that the people want. So what I really like about this is the review is somebody likes Marriott so much, and they do not like that we don't like Marriott so much, that they take the time out of their day to type a review. And I know how long that is something you have to intentionally
Yeah.
set aside a time in your day to go and do. So that tells me that there are just that many people that still like and love Marriott. And I know there are. And like I hear from our members at Built all the time about, are you going to do partnerships with Marriott? Like I stay at Marriott. And I'm like, okay, just because it doesn't work for me, I got to continue to be open-minded and recognize what people like and enjoy. But from a objective standpoint of value, I will continue to pontificate why it's not my favorite program. Such
Sure.
as my stay tonight. It's great. It was $300 or something like that. But using a very valuable $50K free night certificate, I still had to top it up with 10,000 points. And I'm still, after parking, going to be paying almost $100 tonight on a quote unquote free night in exchange for a valuable free night certificate. So that's just not the case with the Hyatt property. So objectively, it's just not as valuable, but I understand, putting my personal feelings aside, why some people enjoy the Marriott program and have for a long time, and why people are going to fiercely defend their brand as much as we defend the brands that we like. So from that point, I appreciate the person taking the time out of their day. It's a good reminder to me again to just keep the blinders off and recognize what people like. However, I will continue to objectively state the value of loyalty programs that we discuss here on the podcast.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I thought the Ritz certificates were higher than 50K for the
So
card.
next year it will be 85K, but this was her legacy 50K certificate.
Got
which
it.
I had
Okay, that was yeah.
right. But
now
this
here-
is
here's
not
a
a
question
peak
for you.
time, right? And we're still asking 60,000 points for the Swan, which I've stayed at the Dolphin, I've stayed at the Swan Reserve, and from what I understand, I'm going to be staying in a very standard 2-queen room tonight that in no way, shape, or form should realize 60,000 points a night that I'm still paying $90 for, right? So,
right. Well, yeah, and that's a really good point. And I guess here's a question for you. I mean, based on your stay profiles, I know in a vacuum your answer is going to be no. But if we take it out of a vacuum and we say just with your everyday travel and what your schedule is going to be, once that Ritz certificate is 85,000 points, what are the chances that you would use it at Swan or Reserve at that point if it was 65?
I mean, I fully anticipate those properties costing near that much in the near future. So probably high. And it's great because we have a great Disney resort lined up, but we're getting in a day early before the park. So you just need a single night somewhere. And here you go. Like we got an awesome Marriott certificate, value in the program. No, it's not free. It's still $90, but hey, that's value in the program. And that's where I'm going to continue to selectively realize the value from Marriott.
I also want to draw I'm going to draw two parallels here. And then we want to talk about the Marriott MGM partnership, which is fascinating. And we'll try not to get too nerdy about it. But I'm going to use your Orlando stay, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about one other element of the Marriott program. So taking your Orlando stay, you do get early access to the parks if you're staying at the Swan. But if we set that benefit aside and I look at Hyatt Regency Grand Cypress, which is just outside the parks, really not that far from Swan and Dolphin, and a very reasonable comp for a property in the Hyatt program. You and I both stayed there at lunch. I think the hotel takes excellent care of us. It's a very big hotel, but I don't find it to be a factory like the Swan is. And it's 15,000 points a night. So, that's, I just, picked a couple random days. It does, get a little bit more than that peak time, but you're typically talking about a third the amount of points or less than what the Swan and Dolphin cost. And in some cases could be, 25% of what it costs. And so that, I think that's where I try to draw parallels for folks like this person who wrote us this rating of sure, there's definitely value in the Marriott program, but it's not worth 4 times the amount of points. And so I guess if you had a ton of organic spend in Marriott properties that you were locked into and you were earning points just in hotels, that I could see that you could draw an equivalency, draw equivalency between spending 60,000 points at the Swan versus 15,000 points at the Hyatt Regency Grand Cypress. But I wouldn't put that spend on a credit card because you're never going to overcome that sort of a difference. I would transfer ultimate rewards. So that's where I think I start to lose sense of the overall value in the points part of it. And I'm curious what your thoughts are there.
Outside of the Masimara, which we talked about last week,
right?
The opportunity for outsized value, which is really what draws me to a loyalty program. And you and I are both road warriors. So when I am grinding the nights out in New York City, I am thinking this is a legitimate overall portion of my compensation package so that I can take these Hyatt points and fund family vacations.
Yeah.
And I have the opportunity to stay at all Marriotts in New York if I want to and grind it out. But grinding out all those Marriott stays is just not going to lead to the kind of family vacation that I want to take. And that's really what it comes down to. I have great properties in New York City. I have stayed at a couple Marriotts. one of the best for family stays was the Courtyard Times Square, where we used a suite night upgrade certificate and had an awesome stay in a suite in New York City on Marriott points. So, I mean,
Yeah.
like it's there. It's just not equivalently there to where I would choose to grind it out in Marriott's rather than Hyatt so that we can take awesome family trips. I mean, that's really what it comes down to for me, right? What
Yeah.
as a road warrior, who I think are the people intended to use these programs, not necessarily everybody who selectively stays and tries to, like, it's fine. Like I did it before I was a road warrior. You know, you do your absolute best, but we're such a small percentage of the population. But now, like, legitimately staying 90, 100 nights a year in hotels, like I have to, like, I'm going to pick where I get the most value. And it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's, you know, why I continue to go back to Hyatt. But I mean, I continue to learn a lot of things in the day job, and the hardest thing for me to overcome, and the thing that our founder continues to grind into me, and thankfully have now gotten a lot better about, he's like, Curry, you're still thinking like only a points and miles person, and you got to get the wider, you got to take the blinders off and get the wider view here, right? So, and I'm like, yep, I got it, and thankfully it has taken me 2 years, but I do try and think about things from, okay, this is like, I'm the points expert, I know the value here, but what does the general public want, and how do
Right.
they think?
Yeah.
And how do we like turn these things that we do into a broad reaching message that is as, now a lot of my personal bias is still going to everything we do at Bill, but it's because I know the value and I want our members to know the value as well. But you're never going to overcome some biases when it comes to like brand loyalty. And we see that across, I get notes all the time for like, hey, why don't, you know, I want to do this airline, you don't have it, therefore I don't like Bill. Or I want to do this hotel, you don't have it, therefore I don't like Bill. And it's like, okay,
Right.
like, I got to set my biases aside and be like, hey, I understand. I hear what the people want. How do we go after the other things that I may personally not be interested in?
Yeah, I think that's all correct. And I think like I come back to this point about credit cards being a big fork in the road for me in terms of value, because I would much rather earn flexible currency and redeem it with other partners before I would ever get to Marriott. And I think the other thing that I've seen that where Marriott has, you know, sort of sanded the edges of SPG away, and it's not quite as awesome as it used to be. It's sort of like you get two separate things. First off, you got properties that used to be a part of the program, like the Daniele in Venice, which was one of my favorite properties in the world. No longer part of the program. When it did transition over, it had gotten harder to book awards, and they got more expensive, stuff like that. So there are some of those like aspirational Marriott properties that have sort of drifted away from the Marriott program. And then there's another set of those sort of aspirational properties where Marriott just doesn't really enforce the rules of the program when it comes to things like suite upgrades and stuff like that. So you really, all you're getting there is you're just getting the equivalency of being able to trade points for cash. You're not getting a valuable breakfast benefit anymore, or you're not getting the ability to get suite upgrades or early check-in or late checkout, all that stuff. And so it really then just becomes a financial transaction at some of these aspirational properties. And I feel like that's another area where, you know, Marriott has drifted away from the ethos of SPG. And just that to me is less valuable, because to your point, I'm never going to spend the $1,000 a night that it costs to stay at the Daniele in Venice. But I used to have a path to be able to do that, and I don't anymore. And so all those little things make it harder for me to want to save up a bunch of Marriott points waiting for the next Masai Mara opportunity.
I mean, agree with all the above. That said, if you love Marriott, if you love Hilton, if you love Wyndham, if you love Choice, like, knock yourself out. It's like a lot of choices and things that people get upset about in life these days. Like, if it doesn't affect me or negatively affect other people, then why should I care? Like, I don't. Like, you loving another hotel chain does not negatively impact my life whatsoever. Just like a lot of choices that people make these days, and for some reason, other people who aren't affected at all by those choices get all bent out of shape, and I don't understand that. So, more power to you. If you got 700, if you have 1,200 lifetime nights at Wyndham, and you just can knock out every Wyndham and you get treated like a royalty at Wyndham, then like, good on you. Like, cool. Well, you know, have a great time and get that Caesar's Diamond status. Like, you know, there's an upside to every place.
And look at you transitioning once again. You are a veteran podcaster. So we're not necessarily talking about Caesars today, but we're going to talk about MGM. And, you know, it's funny because I got a bunch of comments after we posted last week's episode of, you know, hey, how come you guys didn't talk about the Marriott MGM partnership? And we did record, you know, early enough that we missed that story. So to refresh folks' memory, last week we talked about the fact that Hyatt and MGM were severing their partnership. This had been rumored for a while, no official announcement until very recently. And then almost immediately after that announcement, it's announced that Marriott and MGM have signed a decades-long partnership. And I'll admit I was surprised because we talked about this on the show that I said, hey, I think we'll see all this stuff come back around at some point. But right now, I guess MGM doesn't see the value in needing to fill cheap rooms. And boom, here comes this Marriott partnership. And so, this certainly took me by surprise. I'm curious how big of a surprise it was for you.
Yeah, I think it was equally a surprise for everybody. Unless you had inside knowledge, I don't know any of us saw this coming, because during the commentary of Hyatt and MGM parting ways, nobody said, "Oh, it's because they're going with a different hotel chain."
Right.
So I think it was a pretty big surprise. Which the corporate inner workings to make this happen of who at Marriott approached MGM while they were still under contract with Hyatt and said, "Hey, you guys need to come on over here." Like,
Yeah.
how does always interested how those details, like who had dinner with who first to make that happen. But, I can absolutely see the allure at MGM. I think some points you made earlier this week, I think it was in our Slack group, where, Marriott just has such a wider distribution than Hyatt that they're going to book a whole lot more hotel rooms than them using Hyatt as a platform. The downside of that, I think, is I would imagine whatever they had in place with Hyatt, based on how valuable Hyatt points and status are in elite nights, it's going to be a lot more affordable for MGM to go with Marriott.
Yes.
And that leads me to worry about what benefits are Marriott members going to receive at MGM properties, right? What level of Marriott status do you have to get MGM Gold? Is there going to be reciprocal status? How are elite nights and points earning, going to work? So very interested always to see the nitty gritty here. Probably understood why MGM did it. Am I sad to lose it from Hyatt? Yep. I only used it a few times myself, but I think everybody, status running for globalists off $30 Excalibur rooms are a little bit sad. And or maybe people our Marriott fans are like, sweet, now I can mattress run my Marriott lifetime status using cheap Excalibur or Luxor rooms or whatever. So
right.
Can't wait for the nitty gritty details to come out here.
Yeah, and I think so. So a couple of things. First off, I think you're spot on when you talk about the value and what this is going to cost. I imagine that Marriott, pitched to MGM two separate ways that this was valuable for them. And I'll try not to get overly nerdy, but the first was, hey, we can book more rooms for you. And the second was the soft costs of loyalty are going to be less with us than they are with Hyatt. And so from like MGM Rewards standpoint, the MGM Rewards program is a valuable program, but they've locked away a lot of the best benefits of that program now based on tier credits. And tier credits is their way of keeping score of essentially how much you spend with them. It's not just casino spend, also restaurant spend, stuff like that. But essentially, just because you get a status match doesn't mean that you also get the best benefits. So for example, like their gold status, which was one of the statuses you could match with Hyatt, has a dining credit. I think it's $100 every year. But you only get that dining credit if you've spent a certain amount of money with MGM. And you get other things, and some of those things are fairly valuable, one of which is getting reduced room prices, which I think is a pretty big benefit. But I think MGM has done a reasonable job of gating away some of the soft benefits that would be most valuable from MGM reward status for a status match opportunity. So it's the only thing, as I spent some more time looking at it, I do think we will get status match. And I think the reason we will is because MGM has taken the things that make them the most money and they've put them behind essentially a separate wall, a paywall, if you will. But what will probably be most beneficial for MGM members is the same thing that was beneficial for Hyatt members, which is discounted room rates. So I used to be able to get really decent room rates at places like Aria and Mandalay Bay and stuff like that at certain times a year based on the MGM rewards rate. And that's not going to cost a whole heck of a lot because MGM can pull those strings of like, hey, if the hotel is full, we just won't offer the MGM rewards discount.
I really hope Marriott Platinum gets MGM Gold just for the waived resort fees, right? That's what makes this significant discount on the room rates at Vegas to me, because I'm not
100%.
not doing $800 room rates for the resort fees a insignificant amount. I would, again, not a Vegas guy. I actually haven't been to Vegas since 2018, but when I surf around and keep up with things,
Has it really been that long? That was when we had dinner, 2018.
yeah, it was, or was it 19? Maybe
I
19.
think it was 19. I think we went. Yeah, I think in 2019 we went to that.
Yeah, 2019. That was the last time I was there. But searching around, resort fees are like half the room rates for the places I would book, or a third of the room rates, right? So pretty valuable. Otherwise, agree with your points, but sometimes there are surprises in these deals. So
Yeah.
I wonder how much Marriott losing Cosmopolitan made them realize what they could actually have in Vegas. If, just losing one property that they were like, hey, this was actually a pretty sizable little
Yeah.
deal for us. What if we went after all MGM properties?
Right.
And made a much bigger deal. So that's pretty cool. Any idea of the timeline you've had to guess before the nitty gritty details are released?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not agreed to yet. So they talked about the fall, and my guess is that we probably won't find out about it until right before it happens at this point. So I need to reach out to Marriott. I haven't, so I'll reach out to them today and see if they have a timeline on it, and we can include a link in the show notes or a note in the show notes if we get some idea on timing. And speaking of timing, before we run out of time, we didn't talk much last week about my credit card apps. In fact, we didn't talk about it at all. So since I don't apply for cards very often, and I'm not one of those guys who churns cards, I applied for 2 credit cards last week. Okay, technically I applied for 3 because I applied for the Aeroplan card, didn't get it again, which we talked about. But you were talking about these Hilton offers, and the Hilton Amex Business credit card had a 150,000 point sign-up bonus. And then I talked to you about wanting to get the customized cash card from Bank of America, and got approved for both. Almost finished the spend off for the Hilton Business Amex, which is great. 150,000 Hilton points won't go super far. When we talk about, the difference between Hyatt and Marriott, Hilton's the same way. I mean, a decent Hampton Inn for a track meet for my daughter is 40 or 50,000 points a night, but 150,000 points is still a really solid bonus for that card. So I was excited to get approved for that card. I'm still not sure. I'm going to drop the other Hilton credit card that I have. I think I have the Surpass, and I'll use this for my Resort World stays and stuff like that to get the bonus points. But it's a fairly economical card to hold. It's a $95 annual fee, and it earns, essentially 12 points per dollar on Hilton purchases. So, I mean, it's worth it to have that in my wallet for Resort World stays.
So, I mean, what are you earning per dollar in Resort World stays? I mean, I have not stayed at a Hilton but once in the last 2 years, and I keep getting targeted double and triple points on stays through X date. So if you're getting triple points and you're a diamond and you get 12 points, you're well over 30 points per dollar, which is
to use a Kerr math number, I get a gajillion points per dollar.
Yeah. When you check out of your Resorts World stay, you'll be like, oh, sweet, another 30,000 Hilton points. This is great. This is pretty great. I mean, that's the one thing I've seen from Hilton. I think that would be an advantage over Marriott, is the pace at which you can earn the Hilton points, at least, is
with the promos, especially if you're targeted for the promos, it can be really, really beneficial. And that's where I think, to your point, you're right. From a currency standpoint, there are great opportunities to earn a boatload of Hilton point for sure.
How was I have not applied for a Bank of America card in probably 5 years. How was that application process?
Super simple. Card was I applied for that while we were in Nova Scotia. And, the card was waiting for me when I got home, and I'll say, for folks who are thinking about this, we keep our main bank accounts with Bank of America. And so they have tiers for banking. I forget what they call the program, preferred rewards, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you sit in the top tier in terms of money in their bank, that gets you this 2.6 something percent bonus. It's a 75% bonus on any credit card earnings. So what that works out to is a 5.2% cash back on our most popular category every month on the card. And you have to pick the category ahead of time. So you kind of have to know what you're going to spend. I think we've done the set it and forget it on this, because one of the categories is online shopping. I'll be curious to see how broad this is. But I mean, my wife essentially buys most of the kids' clothes online. So back to school, stuff like that, just normal stuff throughout the year. I anticipate that's going to be our biggest category. And where I think this card has a ton of value, is not only obviously the 5.2-ish% cash back, but can still obviously use a shopping portal like Rakuten. So on special days, could earn 15 or 20% cash back on something. That's pretty massive.
What's the annual fee on that card again?
I think it's $99.
Yeah, not a luxury card.
Well, none of for the most part, and Bank of America doesn't do big annual fee cards. Well, they don't today. I'm sure there's some plan on a marketing board somewhere for a premium card, because, everybody needs one of those. It is $0 annual fee. Zero.
Ah. So 5% back on a zero annual fee is a pretty solid card.
It is.
Yeah. Probably for places where you otherwise can't really get any discounts for different online shopping things, which I'm always curious how that codes. So I still have the AT&T Access More card. And And I'm sure there are people that have figured this out, but I just have not had luck with my online purchases coding for 3x on that card.
Right.
That is now an afterthought for me. And I'm like, this isn't even, I keep it around for a few separate things. Like I have AT&T internet, so I get 3x points on that. But the online shopping thing has just always baffled me a little bit. So I'm very curious to see your experience with that and make sure that everything online codes properly.
I agree, and that's exactly what I'm waiting to see, because there aren't an unlimited number of categories that you can choose for this. Grocery store is one, wholesale clubs, I think gas is one. But I mean, like when you think about all those different categories, I already have cards that have better earning rates than the base rate for this card. So to be clear, like the other issue is that the base rate on this card is 1%. Now that jacks up to, I guess it would be 1.75% with 75% more rewards. But I have a 2% cashback card in my wallet, and I also have the Bank of America Unlimited Cash card, which gets us 2.6% back on everything. So for my mind, the only spending I want to put on this card is really in that 5% category. I'm going to be a horrible customer for them for this card.
Yeah.
But that's, so getting this category right, to your point, is important, because if I think it's going to code as online shopping and instead it code just as normal, I lost almost 1% on that transaction, because I would earn 1.75 when I could earn 2.625 on the unlimited cash card.
That just leads me to what cards do I need to get next? And the answer is clearly none, but I think I would just continue to rack up. Like we keep getting targeted now Amex Business Gold Card offers for 100,000 points for a $95 annual fee. And it's just like, okay, like fine. Like you're not going to get declined for an Amex business card. At least I can't remember last time I heard of anybody getting, you just got instantly approved for the Hilton business card. And so if they're going to keep throwing these at me, and I tell you where I find my Amex points to be most valuable, like our flight today and the family's flight home on Tuesday from Orlando, is with the business platinum card, 35% rebate on pay with points. Like it is the best way to book Delta flights. It's just, it's best. And then the Delta flight's treated as a paid flight. So we're in Sky Miles on top of that. So it's just like, it's even more than 35% back. And I'm just crushing that, man. So that's literally where my Amex points go, because being in Atlanta, like you got to fly Delta sometimes, and Sky Miles can get it done, but more often than not, like this 35% pay with points rebate is just fantastic. So if I can keep stacking up the Amex points, then probably my near-term strategy to make that happen.
So I have one more question before I let you go, because this applying for new cards brought up a conundrum that it happens every time I apply for a new card that I'm going to use personally. I'm in the process of rearranging my office so we can have prettier stuff behind me, and I'm not using my wife's Pilates studio to record. And hopefully the acoustics of the room work and all that. But while I'm rearranging, there's a bunch of stuff in boxes. And so Richard's like, where the heck is this going? I couldn't find the little stickers I have. I have these little colored dots. And so the personal conundrum is my wife doesn't like carrying a lot of cards. And if I give her more than she can manage, whatever that number is, and that number is clearly not defined, then she just does whatever with the cards. She doesn't. So then like I'm like, why'd you use that card for this, or why'd you do that? She's like, I don't know this. You gave me too many cards. So I finally found the stickers, and each card that she carries now has a little sticker on it. And I'm waiting for my new Built card in the mail because I lost it. And then I got to get a sticker for that one. But here's my dilemma. Like right now in her wallet, I've got, in theory, if she had a current Built card, it would be a Built card, Bank of America Customized Cash, Bank of America Unlimited card, and Amex Gold. How many cards do you have Emily carry?
One.
Yeah.
One card. It's the Blue Business Plus for 2x on everything, and I just can't worry about it after 12 years of trying. It's just not her bag, which is great. And I always find it entertaining when it is the woman in the relationship who is the points person, and they're talking about, I see DH, dear husband, how it's referred to in the forums when they're talking about DH gets frustrated with the sticker thing and whatnot. And it's just funny to hear the stories of the spouses. But yeah, Emily can do one, and we couldn't do that this week. So she lost her Blue Business Plus on a bike ride somehow with the kids. And the new one came, and I kept seeing charges on the Business Platinum for 1X. And I was like, Sweetie, what are you doing? Blue Business Plus. And she's like, oh yeah, I kept trying to use it. It got declined. And I was like, did you activate it? She's like, no, I'll do that. And I'm like, I have to let it go, man. I have to let it go. I got frustrated about too many times that now we got it activated, and the chargers are back on the Blue Business Plus. I go in and update the Amazon account to make sure the right card's in there, and then I lock the Capital One card. So even if she tries to use it, it gets declined, and she pulls out the right card. Which I'm like, I just have to like do that, and then I'll do all the heavy lifting because she does the heavy lifting everywhere else. So I'll continue to to manage the points.
Yeah,
But exactly one.
I know 4 is not going to work. I just haven't figured out which ones I'm gonna pull out of the wallet. I love the Topo Chico insert there. By the way, we got to get sponsorship from Topo Chico.
Sponsored by Topo. We're not sponsored at all. I just really like this water.
Yeah,
Out of the glass bottle.
But 4, 4 I know is too many. So somebody's gonna hit the cutting room floor, and I don't know what's gonna hit the cutting room floor yet. But it's coming, man. It's coming.
Well, the bill card is metal, so you cannot cut that. So it has to stay in the wallet. Zing.
So is the Amex Gold. So I guess I just leave those plastic Bank of America cards, but those are pretty darn valuable. All right. Well, you got Orlando, and then what else you got coming?
I am flying nonstop from Orlando to London when the family comes back to Atlanta.
That's right.
So a quick hop to London and back, and it will be a very exhausting but a very fun next 8 days at the time of recording. So by the time you're listening to this, I will be in London for just a couple of days, where the tube strikes are now planned, where I don't know if my hotel has air conditioning or not, but it's supposed to be about 90 degrees. So that's why my trip to London is going to be very short.
Yeah, the tube strikes are just hellacious. I hit 1 day of them the last time I was in town. It was my transfer day, leaving town. So
I think I'm going to be moving my hotel out to Heathrow and just taking the Heathrow Express in for meetings, and then back out to Heathrow and just be out there.
Yeah, Heathrow Express was actually, I think it was part of the strikes when I was there, and but I moved out to the hotel the night before for that purpose. Yeah, just to dodge that bullet.
Yep.
Well, I've got, let's see, what do I have on the radar? We got Deep Creek for the lake. We're going to be trailing right behind you to Disney for our second and final Star Cruiser voyage. We're going to go see the new Kansas City airport, and then it's off to Billund, Denmark with my son to go see Lego House. So lots of fun stuff on the horizon. Our buddy Summer is going to be down there in Disney. You're going to cross over with her, right?
Yeah, we're hanging out this weekend.
We need to get her back on the show.
Yeah, it'll be a fun weekend with the Holes down there. Holes and Kerr meet up at Riviera for the weekend, so looking forward to that.
I love it. All right, well, lots more summer travel to report on for everyone. Trying to drag Summer back on the show to talk about all things Disney and the fact that she has travel scheduled out to pretty much 2025 at this point, which is just a little bit disgusting. But
yeah,
lots more to come on the Miles to Go podcast, including our Topo Chico sponsorship and a little tattoo on Richard's forehead. All that and a whole lot more until we upload again. We've got miles to go.